my haul video. So I tried to be very well behaved in the dealers market of the WisCon conference. I didn't want to spend a lot of money, but there was one dealer who has a lot of vintage paperbacks, and I enjoy his selection each year. So I got some great finds there. And also I bought a couple of titles from Rosarium Press, which is a great publisher of science fiction and fantasy written by international artists and writers. So let me tell you what I got. So the first thing is Daughters of the Earth by Judith Merrill. And in the back it says so this is a bind up of 3 novels. Project Nursemaid, Daughter of Earth, and Home Calling are the 3 novels in this bind up. To the Moon, to the Planets, to the Stars. Here is a trio that provides a rich feast for all who savor soaring imagination and jolting action. Here is the incomparable Judith Merrill at her best. Here is the ultimate in science fiction adventure. Judith Merrill is not a writer of color. She is a white woman who wrote and collected science fiction. And the science fiction library, the Toronto Public Library's collection of science fiction and fantasy books is named after Judith Merrill because she donated all of her books upon her death to the library. And I think she and Samuel Delany were friends. So this was published in 1970. This was the first edition. So I'm looking forward to reading this because I don't know a lot about Judith Merrill, and I really liked the kind of saucy cover, so I'm excited about that. This volume is called Carl Brandon. Carl Brandon is an imaginary fan who was created in the 1940s was he created in the 1940s? In the 1950s by members of the science fiction and fantasy community of color in reaction to the whiteness of the science fiction fandom at the time. And so this collection has some short works that were created by Carl Brandon, as well as a historical article that talks about what the concerns of the writer of color community were at the time and how Carl Brandon sort of became this interesting figure. This book is also a fundraising tool for the Carl Brandon Society. So I have got 4 additions to my Samuel Delany collection of vintage paperbacks. So this one is a collection of 3 novels. The collection itself is called The Fall of the Towers, and it's a trilogy made up of 3 stories: Out of the Dead City, The Towers of Toron, and City of a Thousand Suns. Now I've read City of a Thousand Suns, but it's the last in the trilogy, so I'm looking forward to reading the others. And this was, these were published in the 1960s. Yes. So, but this edition, I think there were a few rewrites that were done in 1970 by Samuel R. Delany. So that is that's another book that I'm looking forward to reading. Acrobats and urchins, criminals and courtiers, fishermen and factory workers, madmen and mind readers, dwarves and duchesses, giants and geniuses, merchants and mathematicians, soldiers and scholars, pirates and poets, and a gallery of aliens who fly, crawl, burrow, or swim. So I don't even know what this is about really, but I'm looking forward to it because his work is great. So this is another one, The Tales of Neverion, and you'll notice that as was the case I think for all of the novels that came out at this time, the characters on the cover, this is not auto-focusing, the characters on the cover are white, and that happened a lot even if those characters were not white, or not written to be white. So the Tales of Neverion is a dazzling fantasy of a fabulous empire beyond the borders of history, where human destinies intertwine in a strange design. Gorgic, who rose from a slave in the mines to a master of armies, yet remained bound by his desires. Small Sarg, a prince who wore a slave's collar to set men free. Raven, masked sword mistresses from a land where women rule and men obey. And Norima, the fire-haired fisherwoman's daughter, set free by an old woman's magical vision. So Tales of Neverion. So one of the things that I really appreciate about Samuel Delany, and that I'm learning as I read more of his work, I'm sort of right at the beginning of Dahlgren, I've been trying to read that for a while, is that he took up themes, like as you can see, slavery, women's liberation, class. They're all themes in these tales and in many of his works. And he wrote these works in the 1950s and the 1960s. So we're like right in the heart of the civil rights movement. You've got a black gay man writing science fiction and publishing science fiction in the United States. And so I want to remind myself to think about the historical times while I read this writing, and how important a contribution Chip made. So this one is the Einstein intersection. I own a more recent copy of this, but this is just such a gem. So the Einstein intersection is a novel of a strange far future, when this world of Einsteinian laws, having intersected with a universe following a different set of rules, has changed strangely, wonderfully, incredibly. This is the story of Lobi, an alien Orpheus, and his adventures across a weird, sumptuous world, marvelously haunted. Along his questing trail, he meets Spider, the driver of dragons, Kid Death, the red-headed killer from the sea, the Dove, fabulous love image of a world obsessed, Green Eye, victim of a ritual invented by a race dead for millennia, and Frieza, the dark, silent girl Lobi searched for over deserts, through jungles of carnivorous flowers, from a quiet village to a furious city, to the shores of death and beyond. Even the blurbs themselves are literary works. If you think about how blurbs of books have changed over time, what you typically see now is like, you know, this is a story of blah, 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 blah. But even just reading this, you already find yourself, or I find myself, immersed in the tale itself. All right, and this is Nova. And again, you know, looking at the cover, we've got white characters, but we know from what Samuel Delany has told us is that, you know, he is envisioning characters of color. Nova. These are at least some of the ways you can read Nova. As a fast-action, far-flung, interstellar adventure, as archetypal, mystical, mythical allegory, in which the tarot and the grail both figure prominently, as modern myth told in the sci-fi idiom. The reader observes, recollects, or participates in a range of personal human experience, including violent pain and disfigurement, sensory deprivation and overload, man-machine communion, the drug experience, the creative experience, and interpersonal relationships, which include incest and assassination, father-son, leader-follower, human pet, and lots more. So that is Nova. That's it for my Samuel R. Delany Vintage Haul. And now I'm moving on to the books that I got from Rosarium Press. So Rosarium Press was founded by Bill Campbell. It is a press that specializes in science fiction, fantasy, horror, graphic novels, and comics from around the world. So really bigging up and centering authors from all over the place. and a lot of different identities, and focusing on authors of color. So this is The Voices of Martyrs by Maurice Broaddus. This book has been blurbed by Karen Lord and Cherie Renee Thomas. You'll be familiar with Karen Lord because she's got some great books like The Galaxy Game, Redemption and Indigo, The Best of All Possible Worlds, and in June she's coming out with The Unraveling. And Cherie Renee Thomas is a writer of short stories, but also, and I think also, and of comparable importance, is the fact that she came out with the very first compilation of Afrofuturist short fiction called Dark Matter. I have Dark Matter 1 and Dark Matter 2, and they are great and important beginners. So Dark Matter 1 is just called Dark Matter. Dark Matter 2 is called Reading Down the Bones. And Dark Matter 3 is going to be coming out apparently sometime in the next year and a bit. So the blurb for The Voices of Martyrs: we are a collection of voices, the assembled history of the many voices that have spoken into our lives and shaped us. Voices of the past, voices of the present, and voices of the future. There is an African proverb, so wo where fina wo sankofa a Yankee, which translates as, it is not wrong to go back for that which you have forgotten. That's the Sankofa principle. This is why we continue to remember the tales of struggle and tales of perseverance, even as we look to tales of hope. What a people choose to remember about its past, the stories they pass down, informs who they are and sets the boundaries of their identity. We remember the pain of our past to mourn, to heal, and to learn. Only in that way can we ensure the same mistakes are not repeated. The voices make up our stories. The stories make up who we are, a collected voice. So this is by Maurice Broaddus. So this little beauty is called Bad Mothers. And this, so you've got Bill Campbell, David Brame, and Damien Duffy. So I think we've got a writer, right. So Bill Campbell is the writer, David Brame is the artist, and Damien Duffy is the letterer. So these women are truly bad. They're rough, they're ready, they're space pirates. They're a James Brown cover band. They are the Bad Mothers. From Aphrodisia, Callie Vera, Allie Bastard, Candy Ass, Katana Jade, and Snake on their follow them on their madcap cosmic adventures as they funk up the galaxy in search of the almighty booty. So I love that, and I like graphics that are in color. I'm not a fan of black and white graphic art, so I'm happy about this, and I'm looking forward to this band. They're very cute. All right, and then I've got volume 1 and volume 2 of Sunspot Jungle, and the I just noticed that on the back. I don't know if you can, you can see it a little bit. No, you can see the reflection of my camera. Yeah, there's also the other side of the face. So Sunspot Jungle is a collection of fantasy and science fiction. And if you just look at the inside, like, there are many authors. And what really inspired me to purchase these collections is that there are art pages in between the stories. I don't think there's a description. Yeah, it's just a global science fiction celebration featuring the works of a whole bunch of people. Now, when I look, there are names that I recognize, like Tobias Buckell, P. Deji Clark, who did the Black Gods drums, Dilman Dilla, who I actually met. I think he's from either Uganda or Tanzania. Tanana Reeve Dew has a piece in here. Max Gladstone, Jamie Gough, who's here at this conference, who I met. Nalo Hopkinson, who has my heart. Walida Imarisha is in this. That's amazing. Karen Lord. This is a one. Danielle Jose Older. Rebecca Roanhorse. Nisi Shawl. Cherie Renee Thomas. That's in volume 2. And then in volume 1, Saladin Ahmed, Kay Tempest Bradford, Jennifer Marie Brissett, who did Elysium, that I recently read. What other names? Amal El Mokhtar, Hiromi Goto, N.K. Jemisin has a piece in here. Victor Lavalle. Victor Lavalle, I think, did I think that was the vampire, is that it? The Frankenstein retelling? I hope I'm getting that right. Silvia Moreno Garcia. Wow, this is amazing. So just, again, so many short pieces, just amazing. And I'm really looking forward to the art. So volumes 1 and volume 2. Now, I need to take a deep breath because I'm so grateful and surprised and shocked and excited about this next book. So I have a copy of Survivor by Octavia Butler. So for those of you who don't know why this is so important, Survivor is Octavia Butler's first novel. There are not a lot of copies of this left on the planet. It will not be reprinted. She didn't want it to be reprinted. The first edition, I spoke to Nisi Shawl about this, who shared this with me. And also, if you want to learn more about the history of this story, you should check out Strange Matings, written by Nisi Shawl, edited by Nisi Shawl, and, what is her name? Sorry, it's co-edited with another woman, and I've forgotten her name. I apologize. But Strange Matings includes a lot of different short stories and essays and life writing about Octavia Butler and remembering her. And in one of the pieces, we hear about Survivor. She was not happy with this novel, and she was especially not happy with the first edition of this novel. So it's a bit controversial, and I think that's also why there aren't a lot of copies of this in the world. But on a lark, I asked the man who was selling the vintage paperbacks what Octavia, as I do every year, what do you have from Delaney and what do you have from Octavia Butler? And he had a lot of great Octavia Butler ones. He didn't even have this out on the table. But he mentioned, like, oh, I've got a copy of Survivor. And I'm like, what? You have what? And he's like, do you want it? And I'm like, yes, I want it. And he like pulled it out from the back, and he was telling me that, he really wanted to make sure that the person who got this was somebody who really wanted it and somebody who really understood why it was so important. And I'm just happy that I have a copy of this. I'm looking forward to reading it, and I'm also like just looking forward to this being a way to honor Octavia Butler as well. So I'll read the back. Know thy enemy. They fled from an earth ravaged by plague and violence, seeking to fulfill their holy mission to discover a new home for humanity. But instead of landing in a peace-filled paradise, Earth's missionaries find themselves caught between two warring civilizations, the Garkon and the Tekon. And only one of the people from Earth, a young girl and converted missionary named Alana, has the proper survival training to see through the lies of their Garkon hosts, who extend the hand of friendship to the humans only to enslave them. Alana alone can understand the necessity of becoming one with the Tekon enemy, and, perhaps, she can find a way to release the missionaries from the deadly bondage into which they have complacently fallen. Yet even if she succeeds, will Alana merely be saving them for a still more inescapable doom? So this is Survivor, and Newsday described it as a sensitive story of conflicting loyalties using human-alien relationships to reveal deep human truths. The woman on the cover is actually not white. Can you, let me see, because I feel like I need to manually adjust. Does that help? Yeah, there we go, I think. There we go. So that is the cover art of Survivor. And then let's go back to me. Am I getting in focus? There we are. It's a science fiction novel by Octavia Butler. So this was copywritten in 1978. And so that means it's 41 years ago. And yeah, the first printing was in May 1979. And this one, this doesn't seem to be the first signet printing. I don't know. It's not clear which one this is. Okay. This is an authorized reprint of a hardcover edition published by Doubleday and Company. So I believe that it was the hardcover by Doubleday and Company that she didn't want people to read, and this is the authorized reprint. So I feel better about that. So yeah, that is Survivor by Octavia Butler. I'm gonna put it back in its little bag, and yeah, so that is my haul from WizCon, and I hope that you enjoyed this selection of books. At some point I will be posting the vlog, but I thought I would just get this up because I have a lot of footage and it's gonna be a busy, excuse me, ooh, burping. It's going to be a busy week, so I just want to make sure that I've got some content up for you. If you have read any of these books and you want to tell me about them, then please do so in the comments. I hope that you enjoyed this haul, and yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.